Argus 3 never felt dangerous. The diplomatic station orbiting the pale blue moon had always carried an atmosphere of cautious peace, a place where alien emissaries and human diplomats pretended politics mattered more than power. It was clean, quiet, and predictable, until the day it wasn't. Lena Voss pressed her forehead against the transparent ferroglass of the observation deck. The stars fascinated her in ways her father could never fully understand. She watched the drifting cargo lights and whispered, "They look like floating lanterns." Her breath fogged the glass. Her father, Ambassador Ilrin Voss, stood several meters away in a conference chamber, deep in negotiations with Imperial envoys. His voice, usually warm, carried a strained edge today. Lena heard enough to notice tension, not enough to understand its cause. She didn't know the Empire had delivered an ultimatum at dawn. She didn't know her father had refused it. She only knew she wasn't supposed to wander far. But 9-year-olds rarely obey boundaries written by adults who believe danger can be scheduled. She stepped into the corridor, humming softly. The lights dimmed to signal shift change. Security patrols thinned. She walked past the concession stalls and turned toward the botanical wing where she liked to sit among the low-gravity vines. She didn't see the 3 figures entering from the auxiliary docking tube. They moved with calm purpose, their armor disguised beneath nondescript cloaks. Their eyes followed her. Inside the conference room, Ilrin felt an instinctive chill. He paused, mid-sentence, but the Vraxelonian envoy across from him, a tall figure with crystalline skin and cold silver irises, didn't stop speaking. "You misunderstand," the envoy said. "Compliance prevents unnecessary complications." Ilrin straightened. "Compliance with coercion isn't diplomacy." Before the envoy could reply, alarms warbled softly through the vents. Not loud, barely a chime, but unmistakably wrong. Imperial envoys exchanged glances. Ilrin took a single step toward the door. "Ambassador," his assistant whispered urgently through his earpiece. "Security breach near Section D. We're tracking unidentified operatives moving toward the observation deck." Ilrin's stomach tightened. "Lena's there," he said, already running. The corridors seemed longer than usual, each step heavier with dread. The tactical display on nearby walls flickered red. He heard distant shouts. His heart pounded as he rounded the final corner, then froze. The cloaked figures stood at the end of the corridor. Lena stood in front of them, eyes wide, confused. "Papa?" she whispered. Ilrin's breath hitched. "Lena, come to me." "Now." One operative grabbed her arm. Lena yelped. Ilrin felt something primal ignite in his chest. He lunged forward, but the nearest operative stepped into his path, palm rising. A concussive pulse slammed Ilrin against the wall. Pain blurred his vision. "Terrans respond fiercely to emotional pressure," the lead operative said coldly. "The Chancellor wanted proof." Lena tried to fight free. "Let go! You're hurting me!" Ilrin struggled to rise. "Please don't touch her. She's a child." The operative glanced back with indifference. "Humans are fragile. You will break." Ilrin saw the movement, too fast, too deliberate. A single, efficient motion. Lena collapsed without sound. The corridor blurred. Ilrin's scream echoed against metal walls. He crawled toward her, fingers trembling, voice cracking with disbelief. The operatives vanished through the docking hatch before security units arrived. The station's internal recorders captured everything. When Admiral Rylan Ward received the encrypted file hours later, he expected negotiation transcripts. He did not expect to watch a child die. He replayed the footage twice, jaw tightening with each pass. The third time, he couldn't bring himself to finish it. He shut the terminal and rubbed his eyes, forcing composure back into place. His breathing steadied only after several minutes. The door to his office hissed open. General Asher Malik stepped inside. "You saw it?" "Yes," Rylan replied. Malik lowered his voice. "The Empire claims rogue elements. No responsibility." Rylan stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth's curve. "They planned it. They wanted a reaction. Then they'll get one. Rylan turned. The council? Divided. Some call for restraint. And you? Malik met his gaze. That girl could have been my daughter. Silence stretched. Rylan finally nodded. Prepare the briefing. I'll address them myself. Earth's council chamber filled with voices, grief sharpening into fury. Representatives watched the recording in stunned silence before erupting into argument. Rylan stood at the center podium, waiting until the noise burned itself out. He spoke evenly. This is not an isolated act. This is the Empire testing whether humanity will swallow humiliation. They assume our grief makes us weak. Councillor Varen folded her hands. Their envoy insists they had no knowledge. Rylan answered. They lie. And even if they didn't, the operatives were Imperial trained. Responsibility remains. Councillor Eris leaned forward. What do you propose? Protocol Ares. Gasps rippled across the chamber. It had been centuries since Earth invoked that level of mobilization. Councillor Varen whispered. You understand what that means? War? Rylan answered quietly. No. It means consequences. The chamber fell silent. Humanity has bent to preserve peace. Rylan continued. We've compromised, endured insults, and assumed restraint would earn respect. It didn't. They murdered a child to gauge our threshold. We either answer, or accept that every human life is negotiable. A murmur of agreement swept the hall. The vote was called. Unanimous. Protocol Ares activated. Before the mobilization broadcasted galaxy-wide, Rylan made one stop on Earth's northern coast. The Voss family home overlooked gray waves under a cold sky. Ilrin stood silently on the porch, his shoulders weighted with grief no parent should bear. Rylan approached slowly. Ilrin. I'm sorry. No words are enough. Ilrin's voice was thin but steady. She loved the stars. She trusted people too easily. Rylan hesitated. I give you my word. Her death won't be dismissed. Ilrin looked up, eyes hollow but resolute. Don't let them treat her as a message. Let her be the reason this ends. I will, Rylan promised. As he walked away, a global alert pulsed across every Terran screen. Protocol Ares initiated. All fleets prepare for deployment. Rylan read the message reflected in the sky. They wanted to see how far they could push us. He whispered. Now they'll learn the cost. The war for justice had begun. The hololink chamber aboard the TSS Dawnbringer hummed with restrained tension. Admiral Rylan Ward stood alone in the circular platform as the projectors flickered to life. A translucent figure materialized, tall, sharp, crystalline. The Chancellor of the Galactic Empire gazed down at him with predatory calm. Chancellor HFY Zorath folded his luminous hands. Admiral Ward. Humanity's grief renders you predictable. I trust this call is your final plea before you retreat to morning rituals? Rylan didn't blink. I'm here to give the Empire a chance to prevent a war. A war? HFY allowed a faint smile. Your species lacks the endurance for conflict against us. This isn't about endurance, Rylan replied. This is about responsibility. 3 Imperial operatives infiltrated a neutral station and murdered a human child. You know this. HFY tilted his head with performative confusion. Children are vulnerable. Tragedies occur. Perhaps your facilities are poorly secured. The Chancellor's tone was casual, almost bored. Rylan felt the insult sharpen, but he kept his voice steady. We have full recordings. They acted under Imperial training protocols. They spoke of orders. You can deny the connection, but the evidence is unambiguous. HFY raised a crystalline brow. If rogue elements acted, they will be addressed internally. This does not concern you. It concerns every human alive, Rylan said. We will not let a child's murder be dismissed as an internal matter. Then your species is even more sentimental than reports suggested, the Chancellor said. A civilization basing diplomacy on emotion cannot survive the greater galaxy. Rylan leaned forward slightly. You mistake humanity's compassion for weakness. HFY waved a hand. Enough. The Empire owes you nothing. Withdraw from contested sectors, dissolve your military buildup, and perhaps this misunderstanding will be forgotten. Ryland's jaw tightened. Withdraw? You are surrounded by forces older than your civilization, the Chancellor said coldly. Yield now, and your people may continue existing. Ryland's voice dropped to a quiet, dangerous calm. We're done yielding. HFY's glow pulsed with irritation. Then you choose destruction. No, Ryland answered. We choose justice. The hololink cut instantly. Silence filled the chamber. Hours later, the Terran Council met for the second, and final, session on the matter of diplomacy. Screens displayed HFY's words. The council chamber erupted into layered voices. They treat us as livestock. They threaten extinction. They refuse accountability. Ryland raised a hand. The room stilled. I spoke to the Chancellor, he said. He mocked our grief. He threatened our survival. He demanded surrender. They believe we will fold the moment pressure rises. Councillor Eris asked. Is war unavoidable? War began the moment they murdered Lena Voss. Ryland replied. This meeting determines how ready we are to win it. Councillor Varen asked. And if we stand down? Ryland didn't hesitate. Then we invite them to test how many more human lives they can extinguish before we resist. A deep silence followed, heavy with grim realization. The council voted. War preparations would proceed. Diplomacy was over. News spread across Terran space within minutes. In the military command network, fleets activated dormant protocols as if awakening from centuries of sleep. Defense grids aligned. Shipyards announced full operational status. Civilians volunteered in staggering numbers. But humanity wasn't the only one responding. In the Outer Rim, Imperial commanders received discreet orders. Fast attack fleets were dispatched toward Terran outposts. The Empire sought to strike early, crush morale, and showcase dominance before Earth could mobilize. They chose the frontier relay station Kepler 9, small, isolated, and strategically convenient. At dawn on Kepler 9, Lieutenant Rana Solari reviewed maintenance logs with casual calm. She didn't expect an Imperial task force to drop out of warp above the station. When alarms blared and the starfield warped into the sleek forms of Vraxelonian warships, shock tore through her composure. Unknown fleet inbound. Hostile signatures. Multiple destroyers. A sensor officer shouted. Rana grabbed the comm headset. Broadcast emergency signal to the Third Fleet. The relay crew scrambled. They were outgunned and exposed, but Kepler 9 wasn't defenseless. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Captain Erythros smirked. This will send the Terrans scurrying back to their cradle. Disable their defenses. Imperial cannons opened fire. The station shook violently. Panels shattered. Drones scrambled into the void, engaging the first wave with desperate precision. Rana steadied herself. Return fire! All torpedoes, full burn! Torpedoes streaked outward. A destroyer lurched as its shields collapsed. But the Empire pressed harder, convinced victory was a formality. Then space tore open behind the station. A Terran warship materialized, sleek, silver, deadly. The TSS Dawnbringer had arrived. Admiral Ryland's voice snapped across the channel. Kepler 9, fall back behind our formation. We're taking point. Rana exhaled in relief. Admiral, we thought. Later. Hold position. The Terran fleet appeared in staggered pulses, ships sliding into coordinated formation with machine precision. Human rail cannons locked onto enemy signatures. Ryland surveyed the tactical display. The Empire's formation was aggressive but sloppy, arrogance masquerading as strategy. Target their forward triad, he ordered. Fire on my mark. The crew waited. Mark. The Dawnbringer's rail cannons unleashed a barrage that split space with blinding lines. Imperial shields flickered under the concentrated fire. A destroyer fractured into molten fragments. Captain Nero stared in disbelief. How are Terrans hitting us with such precision? His second-in-command answered shakily. They're predicting our evasive patterns. Ryland issued the next order. Focus fire on the flagship. Terran ships rotated formation seamlessly, AI-assisted targeting reading energy fluctuations in real time. The Empire fought back, but their patterns were rigid, built for intimidation, not adaptability. Within minutes, the Imperial flagship shuddered under direct hits. Its engines flared out. The Rose signaled retreat. Withdraw, now! These humans are not. His voice cut off as a final kinetic salvo struck the flagship's core. The ship imploded silently. The remaining Imperial vessels fled into warp. Ryland surveyed the field. Status? Rana responded. Enemy retreat confirmed. Casualties minimal. You came just in time. Ryland's voice softened. Not just in time. Exactly on time. Hours later, reports of the battle spread across human space. People cheered, fears shifted into fierce resolve. The Empire's belief in an easy victory fractured. Yet Ryland didn't celebrate. He stood in the Dawnbringer's observation deck, watching debris drift into the star's pale light. Commander Hale approached him quietly. They underestimated us. They always have, Ryland said, eyes fixed on the void. But now they know we're not stepping back. Hale studied him. What next? Ryland answered without hesitation. We take the initiative. No more waiting for their next move. He turned from the window, steps firm, voice steady. They wanted to break our spirit. Instead, they've awakened something they never prepared for. Humanity was no longer reacting. Humanity was rising. The industrial heart of Mars pulsed with renewed urgency. Foundries that once produced civilian transports now hammered out armored plating for warships. Robotic cranes glided across assembly lines, welding skeletal frames of dreadnoughts with unbroken precision. Above the red world, orbital yards hummed as engineers worked in relentless shifts. Humanity was no longer preparing, humanity was transforming. Admiral Ryland Ward watched the construction data scroll across the Dawnbringer's tactical screen. The numbers were staggering: 6 new carrier groups authorized, dozens of escort squadrons queued for deployment, and 3 Titan-class dreadnoughts already past initial assembly. Humanity had mobilized with a unity that surprised even its own strategists. Commander Hale stepped beside him. The scale is historic. We haven't seen production like this since the old Earth unification wars. It's different this time, Ryland said, folding his arms. This isn't about dominance. It's about protecting everyone who can't fight back. Hale nodded slowly. Including those outside our species. A notification pinged. Ryland opened the message. Another refugee convoy had entered Terran space, carrying displaced families from Imperial-controlled rim worlds. The Empire's tightening grip had driven countless species into desperate flight. Ryland turned to Hale. Prepare a meeting room. I want to speak with their representatives. The refugees arrived aboard a battered freighter, its hull scarred from repeated harassment. Among them were leaders from 3 species long subjugated by the Empire: the nimble Shikar, the scaled Mehari, and the crystalline-voiced Orin. Ryland greeted them personally. The Shikar envoy, Korea Tal, stepped forward. Her slender frame trembled, not from fear, but exhaustion. Admiral Ward, your people gave us safe passage when the Empire hunted us. We came because we heard rumors. Rumors that humanity means to resist. We do more than resist, Ryland said. We intend to end their tyranny. Korea exchanged glances with the Methari elder, Jorwin. The elder's deep violet eyes reflected sorrow. Our worlds have suffered generations of control. If you rise, Admiral, you will not rise alone. Ryland studied their expressions. Desperation mixed with a faint spark of hope, something fragile but powerful. You're safe here. But safety isn't enough. Tell me what the Empire has done. The Orin representative stepped forward. Its crystalline voice rang softly. Our children were taken for military conscription. Our resources drained. Our culture stripped. The Chancellor believes obedience ensures stability. Those who resist, vanish. Ryland felt the familiar weight settle in his chest. Lena Voss's face flickered in his memory, but he pushed the emotion aside. This meeting wasn't about grief, it was about momentum. We're building an alliance, Ryland said. Not of species, of principles. Stand with us, and your worlds won't return to chains. Korea bowed her head. Then we give you everything we know about their patrol routes, supply lines, and internal weaknesses. Ryland exhaled. Welcome to the coalition. The intelligence gained from the refugees reshaped Terran's strategy. Imperial supply chains stretched thin across the outer rim, poorly defended due to their overconfidence. Ryland saw the path clearly: strike fast, liberate border systems, destabilize the Empire before it could regroup. He summoned the fleet commanders to the briefing chamber. Today, Ryland began, we stop waiting. We push into the rim. Take their outposts, cut their routes, and free every world trapped under their rule. General Malik leaned forward. We strike all sectors at once? Yes, Ryland answered. Overwhelm them where they believe themselves strongest. Their arrogance blinds them. Hale added. And if the Empire escalates? They already escalated, Ryland said. We match force with force, but we hold the moral line. No civilian targets. No scorched worlds. We're not them. Approval rippled across the room. Within 48 hours, Terran fleets surged into Imperial territory. The first target was the mining colony of Nerith IV, a Methari world stripped bare by Imperial oversight. When the Dawnbringer dropped out of warp above the scarred moon, Imperial garrisons scrambled to respond. Their resistance was immediate but disorganized. Terran strike craft swarmed across the battlefield in coordinated arcs, bypassing static defenses with fluid maneuvers. Human pilots adapted mid-flight, shifting formations as Imperial ships attempted rigid counterattacks. Within minutes, the Dawnbringer disabled the command center without destroying surrounding infrastructure. On the ground, Terran Marines advanced through abandoned tunnels to secure the colony's heart. Families emerged cautiously, unsure whether the new arrivals brought freedom or another regime. When Ryland's voice echoed through the station's speakers, calm, steady, promising protection, the tension broke. Methari citizens looked up with relief etched across their faces. Commander Hale turned to Ryland. Word of this will spread faster than any broadcast. That's the point, Ryland said. Hope must outrun fear. Liberations continued rapidly. One by one, rim systems fell out of Imperial control, not through devastation, but through surgical precision. Each victory drew more refugees to the Terran banner. Each battle eroded the myth of Imperial invincibility. Yet not everything shifted in humanity's favor. In the depths of Empire territory, Chancellor Kale-Thyr received the reports with a tightening expression. Terran victories? He said coldly. The lesser species flocked to them like insects to spilled nectar. A trembling aide approached. Admiral Ward is coordinating multi-system offensives. Our commanders report that humans adapt too quickly, Chancellor. Their response strategies. Kale-Thyr cut him off. Enough excuses. If they gained ground, it is because we allowed it. He paced slowly across the crystalline floor. The Empire's doctrine had been simple. Fear sustains order. Brutality ensures obedience. But humans didn't react as predicted. They fought harder. They inspired rebellion rather than submission. Kale-Thyr halted, crystalline fingers twitching. Initiate Project Starfall. The aide paled. Chancellor, Starfall was designed for planetary. Do it, Kale-Thyr hissed. If humanity wants a war of ideals, we will crush their ideals beneath their own ruins. Terran intelligence intercepted fragments of the plan days later. A colony world, Haven Reach, population 500,000, was targeted for annihilation. The weapon was hidden within an Imperial research complex deep within the storm layers of the gas giant Drathan 6. Ryland convened a covert strike team aboard the Dawnbringer. Elite Marines gathered around the holotable as swirling red clouds of Drathan 6 rotated above the projection pad. Ryland pointed at the complex. This installation houses Starfall. If activated, Haven Reach dies within hours. We're going in, shutting it down, and extracting any scientists who surrender. Sergeant Marathane cracked her knuckles. What if they don't surrender? Then we take the control core and destroy the weapon, Ryland said. The infiltration was brutal. Navigating electrical storms, repelling guards, and crossing unstable platforms tested the team's limits. They reached the core chamber moments before activation. A captured Imperial scientist glared at them. You cannot stop the Empire. Starfall ensures compliance. Ryland stepped closer. Compliance is not peace. The strategic map of Imperial space glowed across the Dawnbringer's main table, hundreds of systems marked with shifting icons. Some blinked Terran blue, newly liberated. Others pulse red, fortified worlds still under Imperial control. In the center of the map shone the largest cluster, Vraxel Prime, heart of the Empire. Fleet commanders filled the briefing chamber, their faces drawn with determination. Representatives of allied species stood among them, Shikar scouts, Medhari tacticians, Oran analysts. Weeks of coordinated offensives had led to this moment. Admiral Ryland Ward stood at the front, calm amid the rising tension. This is the final phase, he began. The Empire is weakened, but not broken. If we strike Vraxel Prime swiftly, we end their command structure and free the core worlds. General Malik tapped the projection. Their defensive grid is dense. Layered fortifications, shield platforms, and a central command citadel. They expect a direct assault. They expect brute force, Ryland replied. We'll give them precision. Korea Tal of the Shikar stepped forward. Our scouts charted a narrow gravitational corridor leading into the inner sector. Risky, but it bypasses their forward fleets. Ryland nodded. We use that corridor. Half the fleet enters stealth formations. The rest feign a frontal assault to draw fire. When the Empire commits to the decoy, we strike the command citadel. Hale folded his arms. HFY will be waiting. Ryland's expression hardened. Good. I want him to see the end coming. Approval swept the room. The plan moved into motion. 3 days later, the largest Terran coalition fleet ever assembled drifted into position. Battleships, carriers, gunships, and allied escorts formed sweeping lines that stretched across the void. The Dawnbringer glided at the center, its silver hull reflecting distant starlight. Ryland stood on the command deck. The hum of the ship thrummed beneath his feet, steady, resolved. Fleet status? He asked. Hale checked the tactical feed. All strike wings ready? Allies in formation. Decoy fleet prepared to jump. Ryland inhaled slowly. Begin. Space distorted as the decoy fleet jumped toward Vraxel Prime's front line. Moments later, the Empire reacted exactly as predicted. Massive crystal-armored dreadnoughts surged forward, firing beams that split darkness. Their formations tightened, focusing entirely on the decoy. Imperial commanders broadcast triumphant declarations across open channels, convinced they'd cornered humanity's best. But the real strike force moved unseen. Within the narrow gravitational corridor, Terran ships whispered through the void in silent formation. Engines barely glowed. Hulls absorbed stray light. The Imperial sensors, designed to detect brazen advances, missed them completely. As the corridor opened into the inner sector, Vraxel Prime emerged, an enormous crystalline orb wrapped in defensive rings, shimmering with cold beauty. Ryland stepped forward. All ships hold formation. Target grid coordinates for simultaneous strikes. Hale studied the readouts. They haven't noticed us yet. They will, Ryland said. Let's make sure the first thing they notice is their defenses collapsing. He lifted his hand. Fire! Terran rail cannons, plasma lances, and coordinated drone swarms unleashed a synchronized storm. Defensive platforms shattered. Shield nodes burst. Entire sections of the Imperial grid flickered offline in seconds. Alarms blared across Vraxel Prime's command citadel. Inside, Chancellor HFY rose sharply from his throne, crystalline skin pulsing with fury. Impossible! How did Terrans breach the inner ring? His advisors scrambled. Sensors did not detect their entry. Then your sensors are flawed, HFY roared. Deploy the home fleet. Move all forces to the Citadel perimeter. But the home fleet was already under fire. Terran ships descended in a controlled cascade, adaptive formations shifting every second. Imperial vessels responded with brute intensity, but their rigid tactics shattered under the unpredictable flow of human strategy. On the Dawnbringer, Hale reported, "Enemy fleet overwhelmed but still resisting. Their Citadel's shields are holding. Then we take them from within," Ryland said. "Prepare ground units." Dropships plunged into Vraxel Prime's atmosphere, cutting through swirling particles of luminous dust. Metari commandos, Terran Marines, and Shikar strike units advanced through crystalline towers toward the Citadel's base. The ground trembled as defensive turrets activated. Imperial guards poured from fortified chambers. Sergeant Marathane shouted over the comms, "Marines, shift left! Metari, breach that column, bring it down!" The combined forces pushed forward. Human resilience, Shikar agility, and Metari brute force created a battlefield rhythm the Empire had never faced. Ryland descended with the final wave, boots striking the shimmering ground. The Citadel loomed overhead, its spires glowing with captured starlight. Hale stepped beside him. "If HFY's inside, he won't run. He wants to prove humans break under pressure," Ryland said. "Let's show him he's wrong." They breached the Citadel doors with a plasma cutter. The interior glowed with iridescent light. Guards attempted to regroup, but the coalition swept through them with disciplined precision. At the throne chamber's entrance, Ryland raised a fist. His team halted. He entered alone. The chamber was vast, crystalline pillars rising like frozen lightning. At its center stood HFY, his body radiating cold fury. "So," the Chancellor said, voice echoing, "humanity claws at the throne of a civilization it barely understands." Ryland stepped forward. "Understanding your cruelty is enough," HFY sneered. "You wage a war over a single child?" Ryland's expression didn't waver. "Her death revealed your true nature. And it united everyone you once oppressed." HFY hurled a crystalline spear of energy, but Ryland dodged, rolling behind a pillar. The chamber trembled. They clashed, human determination against imperial strength. HFY fought with vicious intensity, but Ryland's movements were efficient, deliberate, honed by battles the Chancellor had underestimated. A final strike shattered the Chancellor's crystalline armor. He staggered, collapsing to one knee. Ryland aimed his sidearm. "It ends now." HFY glared upward. "Empires do not fall to sentiment." "No," Ryland said. "They fall when they underestimate the people they dominate." A single shot ended the regime. Hours later, Imperial forces across Vraxel Prime surrendered. Coalition fleets took control of the system. Liberated species broadcast celebrations across the galaxy. On the Dawnbringer, Ryland stood at the viewport, watching the Citadel's lights dim. Hale approached quietly. "It's over. For us," Ryland said. "Now the real work begins." The Coalition formed a new Council of Free Worlds. Human engineers assisted with rebuilding devastated regions. Newly liberated species returned to their home systems. A memorial for allies and civilians lost in the war was held on Earth. Ryland placed a small star-shaped pendant at the base of the monument, Lena Voss's favorite trinket. Ilrin Voss stood beside him, voice calm but heavy. She would have been proud. "She changed the galaxy," Ryland answered. "Her memory will shape the peace that follows." Above them, the night sky shimmered with quiet promise. Humanity had risen, not to conquer, but to ensure no child, anywhere in the galaxy, would ever be silenced again. A new era had begun.